Lillahi ta'ala, have the good intentions. So we finished the haram times for prayer. That's a very nice chapter to understand. If you learn the book of obligatory knowledge, it's going to teach you your obligations. But it's going to leave you without some fiqh that you need if you want to understand fiqh well, that you need from or that you would get from other books. Fiqh, when I'm saying fiqh right now, I'm talking about something in your mind, a comprehension because of rules, a comprehension that is born from these rules. We've reached a new section where the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, said prayer is obligatory on every Muslim or any Muslim who is pubescent, sane, and pure. That's clear. He's going to say what puberty means. You know what sanity means. And purity refers to the lack of menses or postpartum bleeding. Therefore, this is always going to be the case of the man. Obligatory upon the guardian is commanding the child to pray at 7 lunar years. So he did like what's in the summary of obligatory knowledge. And spanking the child for abandoning the prayer at 10 years. That's if the spanking benefits. What does it mean that it benefits? It means makes him pray. If it doesn't make him pray, then you don't spank him. Because this spanking is for the sake of Allah. It's not for unleashing your own frustration. And the girl is like the boy. Yani, this is for girls and boys. When the child reaches puberty, yani, the boy, the balagha sabi, the child or the boy, yani, if what's meant here is a kind, there's the boy or the girl, the sabi. Otherwise, the female, you say sabiyah, girl. When the child reaches puberty, or the boy, or when the menstruating or postpartum bleeding woman becomes pure, or when the insane person gains sanity, he becomes able to think. Before the time goes out, any of this happens before the time goes out, by the amount of a takbir, how much time is left before the time goes out? Enough time to say Allahu Akbar. We learned that in the summary of obligatory knowledge. Making up that prayer is obligatory. He says here, which word? Qada. Make up. Making up that prayer is obligatory. Okay, what does this look like? A boy reached puberty before the sun went down. Or a girl. What? Oh. Sorry, I'm going to disable the annotations here as it appears on my screen. And I'm going to erase this also. So a boy reaches puberty. Or a girl, but not by menses. Because if her menses came on, she's not going to be able to pray. That's why he said here, when the menstruating or postpartum bleeding woman becomes pure, her menses goes off. If her menses goes off. Or the insane person gains sanity before the time goes out. How much time is enough here to be called before the time goes out? Enough time to say a takbir. Allahu Akbar. So how much time is that? I measure it at less than 2 seconds. Allahu Akbar. Then the person will have to make up this prayer. Making up that prayer is obligatory. I'm trying to remember the case if he prayed. Then he became pubescent. He has to re-pray? I don't remember. Also obligatory is making up the obligation before it, if it is dhuhr or maghrib. If that obligation is dhuhr or maghrib. Yani, it's also obligatory to make up dhuhr and maghrib. If this thing that stops one from praying goes away at asr or isha time. That's what this means. Let me repeat. We are talking about now when something that stops you from praying goes away, like the Menses stops you from praying, then it goes away. The insanity stops you from praying, then it goes away. Or what makes you obligated to pray happens, like becoming pubescent. Then, if this happened right before the time went out for the prayer, you have to make up that prayer. And if it happens inside the prayer time, you're just going to pray. It's not going to be a makeup, it's going to be on time. If it happened right before the prayer went out, then you're going to make up that prayer. If you had enough time to say the takbir before the time went out. No one objected to my measure there. Less than 2 seconds, inshallah. Okay. So, when this thing that stops you from praying goes away, or what makes you obligated to pray happens, you need to pray that prayer. Also, the Shafi'i school is that, and the prayer before it, if they are combinable. That's how the Shaykh said it in the summary of obligatory knowledge. I think that statement is more clear than this statement. You have to pray that prayer and the one before it if they are combinable. How did he say it here? He said, also obligatory is making up the obligation before it, if it is Dhuhr or Maghrib. So I think the way the Shaykh said it is better. He said, if the time comes in, any question here? Anything not clear? If the time comes in, and then at a time enough to perform the obligation passed, then the woman menstruated, or her postpartum bleeding started, or a person went insane before performing the prayer, making up the prayer is obligatory when the thing goes away. So, what this author did here is the reverse of what's in the summary of obligatory knowledge. The way it is in the summary of obligatory knowledge, look here. If I take this paragraph and put it up here, then if I read it, it goes, if the time comes in and then enough time to perform the obligation passed, then the woman menstruated, or her postpartum bleeding started, or a person went insane before performing the prayer, making up the prayer is obligatory later when that thing goes away. When the child reaches puberty, or when the menstruating or postpartum bleeding woman becomes pure, this means when it goes away, or when the insane person gains sanity before the time goes out by the amount of a takbir, then making up that prayer is obligatory. Also, obligatory is making up the obligation before it, if it is Dhuhr or Maghrib. Now, so much like the way it's in the summary of obligatory knowledge, if you know that book. So this has a little bit more details than what's in the summary of obligatory knowledge in this particular point, this precious case here. This is one of the precious cases of the summary of obligatory knowledge. You know, in the beginning of the summary of obligatory knowledge, the author said he put precious cases in there. Also, like it the way it's in the summary of obligatory knowledge, that order. This one, maybe because I'm used to that one, this one is like it's backwards for me. But maybe if I had learned this one first, then the other one would be like it's backwards. But why this one's like it's backwards? Because he started with when the prayer time goes out. If such and such thing happens before the prayer time goes out, so that means it was already in. So in my mind, it makes sense to start with when it comes in. If the time comes in, and then there was enough time to pray, and then the menses happened, or the person went crazy, he'll have to make up that prayer later if he had enough time to pray. And if this thing goes away before the time goes out, you had enough time to say Allahu Akbar, then you have to make up that prayer. And the one before it, if they are combinable, that one makes more sense for me. The author says, it is obligatory on the fathers, mothers, and masters of slaves to teach their small children and slaves to teach their small children and their slaves what is obligatory upon them after puberty. Let me see here. تعليم أولادهم الصغار وعبيدهم. Yeah, their small children and here their slaves. Even if I don't put their here, it means their slaves. But just what made me look twice here is that in the English looks like it's saying this, these slaves are children too. They're small children and slaves. But if the slaves were not small, they still have to be taught. Who's going to teach them? Those are your slaves. Like what was reported about Ibn Abbas. You heard before, inshallah. He had a slave named Ikrimah. This Ikrimah, he was a scholar. Because Ibn Abbas taught him. He said, Ibn Abbas used to shackle my foot and then teach me. Then it was said later, the son of Ibn Abbas sold Ikrimah. So when Ikrimah heard of that, he went to Ibn Abbas's son and said to him, you sold your father's knowledge? So when he realized what he did, he went to go break the sale. And he was successful. He canceled the sale and he set him free. That's how I remember it. That's how you take care of the knowledge of the religion. You were just a conduit. So you will protect it. If that means protecting yourself also, for the sake of the knowledge. Once, when I was studying overseas, there were some, I don't know if those were explosions. I think probably explosions. Or gunshots, possibly, or possibly firecrackers. They have a lot of those over there. Uh, but it was something that made the students run to the window. So one of the mashayikh in there said, if you knew your value, you would not run to that window. MashaAllah. Also, once when there was great fitna in the land, and there were two mujtahids in an area, they agreed to split up because mujtahids are so rare that they didn't, they wanted to decrease the chances of two mujtahids being killed. That's why in war, they want to take out the generals. Those ones are very valuable. So, it is obligatory on the fathers, mothers, and masters of slaves to teach their small children and their slaves what is obligatory upon them after puberty, such as purification, prayer, fasting, and the like. He familiarizes them with the prohibition of fornication, sodomy, theft, drinking wine, intoxicants, and the prohibition of lying. Yani, he says all of that clearly to the child, makes him understand what all of it really means. Literally. Whether a little or a lot that lying is haram, he teaches him. And that gossip is haram, and tale-bearing. Tale-bearing meaning going between people, saying things to make trouble between them. And what is similar to that? Yani, and what is similar to that? That's an important statement right there. That's vague, isn't it? Yes, it is vague. And I think I told you before, if you want to understand fiqh, you have to be able to understand vagaries. Is that a real word? Vagary? Vagueness. And what is similar to that? How do you implement that? So vague. By having knowledge and having maturity and knowing how to prioritize things and knowing how to gauge the importance of things. Then, if you are like that, then you'll have your child. And let's say you'll teach your child about all these things here. Then something will happen. And then you'll say, I need to teach this child right now about this. It's not in the book of obligatory knowledge, though. Except that it says in there, and what is similar. This is something that needs to be taken care of. And then that's how you do it. Vagaries is for erratic or unpredictable events. Thank you. He teaches them by that. He teaches them that by puberty. Bismillah. He teaches them that by puberty they enter into accountability. Yani, they will understand that. The Muslim children understand that. They will know he's not accountable. Then, in so many instances, you're going to see who's mischievous one. Some of these souls are good, and some of these souls are mischievous. And the child is taught the signs of puberty. This is amongst, according to the author, what should be taught to the child. Then he's going to be able to know his own pubescence. That they are 15 lunar years, the signs. That's for boys and girls. That's about 14 and a half years old. Ejaculation. That's for boys and girls. Happens no earlier than 9 years old, 9 lunar years old. That's about 8.5 years old. Or menstruation for women in particular. Here's a nice case the author mentions. The salary for the one who teaches someone these things comes from his money. Yes. So the salary for the one who teaches someone these things comes from the money of the one who has to learn. That goes back to the fact that the guardian is not obligated to spend his money on the child when the child has his own money. If a child has his own money, it's permissible for the guardian to support the child from the child's money. Because there's only one relative that a man has to support, even if that relative is not poor. Only one. Only one relative that a man has to support, even if that relative is not poor. Who's that? Easy answer. 5, 4. No. The wife, correct. Not the mother. He only has to support his mother if she's poor. He only has to support his child, even his own child, prepubescent child, if the child is poor. Meaning, doesn't have his own money. And for a Muslim, he has to support, he does not, yani, for the Muslim doesn't have to support his non-Muslim mother, unless she is a citizen of the caliphate. Caliphate, citizen of the caliphate. Khilafa. Yani, unless she's dhimmiyah, unless she's dhimmiyah, the kafir who pays the jizya. That means she's citizen of the caliphate, if there were one. A non-Muslim citizen of the Islamic caliphate. If his mother were one of those and she's poor, he has to support her, Muslim. But if she's poor, the only one he has to support without that one being poor is the wife. Anyone else, he only has to support. I'm talking about family here because he has to support these slaves too. They don't have money. They don't own anything. Slaves don't own anything. Not talking about slaves. Anyone else, he only has to support them if they are poor. And that's only going to be the ancestors and the descendants. The ancestors and the descendants. Ancestor means parents, grandparents, great grandparents. Descendant means children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, etc. Only. Not on the side. Side means siblings, uncles, cousins. Those ones, you're not obligated to support them if they're poor. But it might be obligatory to give him help. Yes, I'll repeat. So we're digressing here. What took me into this digression with you here? The author said the salary for the one who teaches someone these things comes from his money. So this child here, this means the guardian is spending the child's money on the child here. Why would he do that? Because it's permissible. Because, yani, why he don't spend his own money on his child? Because he's not obligated to. Why not? Because the child has his own money. So what? Well, because the only time you have to support someone is when they're poor, unless that's your wife. The only one you have to support, even if she's not poor, is your wife. Then you must spend your money on your wife, unless she excuses you, even if she has more money than you. This clear? Uh, uh, yeah. And what else did I say? Okay, you only have to support the wife regardless. Anyone else, you only have to support them if they're poor. And those are only the ancestors and the descendants. The ancestors means the parents, grandparents, great grandparents, and so on. And the descendants means the children and the grandchildren and the great grandchildren, and so on. Anyone in this line here who's poor, you have to support that one. Meaning, your Muslim parent doesn't have money and you do, so you have to support him. Or your Muslim child, prepubescent child, doesn't have money and you do, so you have to support this one. Or your Muslim grandparent is poor and his own children don't support him. Maybe they aren't there. Or for whatever reason, maybe they passed away, for example, or whatever. So originally it's going to be their obligation to support their own parent, originally. If this doesn't happen, then the grandchild has to support that poor grandparent. Originally, who's obligated to support the child? His own parent. But if the parent is not, then the grandparent will support the child. It's obligatory. So who's not included in this? Those who are on the side. The side means not up and down. Up and down is up is the ancestors, down is the descendants. On the side are siblings and uncles and cousins. Yani, aunts and uncles, cousins. These ones, and add in there the pubescent child who's able to earn. He's not crippled. He's not handicapped. He's not insane. You don't have to support this one either. All of those you're not obligated to support if they are poor. And then I said, but it might be obligatory to help your relative if that fulfills the keeping in touch with the relatives. If that help, that's not support, just help. Support, when I say support, means give them lodging, give them clothing, give them food. Not all of that. If helping out that poor relative fulfills the obligation of silatul rahim, keeping the ties of kinship. You said if a grandparent had poor children, or maybe their children have passed away, would it be an obligation for the grandparent to take care of for the grandchildren to take care of the poor grandparents? Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. So he says the salary for the one who teaches someone these things comes from his money. If he does not have money, then that one's salary, the teacher's salary, would be upon whoever is obligated to support the one who has to learn. That's if he doesn't teach him himself or get him taught without paying. And according to the Shafi'i school, it is permissible to take money for teaching the Quran and the Hadiths. According to the Hanafi school, it is not permissible to take money for teaching the Quran or the Hadiths. Let's stop here. Any question?